little group of prayer warriors, God no shame us.
God no go shame us. That's true. And is this the margin of victory you anticipated?
You know, my level of optimism was always on a renewal page, right?
Yes.
And I believe that as we went from region to region, that level of optimism increased as we went along. It got to actually a crescendo when I realized that through all the campaigns, through all the conversations, that you would observe that no matter how hard we worked, government just still tried very hard to undermine our work, okay? Tried very hard to belittle almost, because of course the spotlight will actually
the government in power.
Absolutely. So the spotlight is always on them. But despite all the ridicule, region after region, you'd observe that everybody was conscious of the failures of the system. Everybody was conscious of what they didn't get. And they were conscious of the impunity, of the arrogance and the disrespect. And everybody was also conscious of the fact that this is a government that does not believe in any form of accountability. And so I think that coupled with the levels of hardship that we're seeing, everybody was angry. Look, people simply went to vote them out of anger and hunger.
And I think in the wake of that, the video of the Asantehene, what he told Nana Akufo-Addo then,
thank you,
about people voting and out of hunger and anger.
This was because Asantehene is on a high keel and the media is on him. Chief after chief, House of Chiefs after House of Chiefs, everybody, even Akufo-Addo's personal friends who were chiefs, classmates of his who are currently prominent chiefs, even they could not defend him. Yes.
The president-elect, John Dramani Mahama, how is he feeling? How is it taking it all in?
You know, Mr. Mahama is a very interesting man. The conundrum is that when we finally got to that point, I remember the best I saw was his excitement when he looked on the screen. And then he asked Dr. Amani Boama, will that figure change? And Amani says no. You mean, is this the final? Amani says yes. He said, oh, wow. So what are these on this side? You mean, are these really the presidential results? Amani says yes. Then he said, whoa. Then, this is something, This is huge. Oh, Amani, are you very sure?
Unprecedented, right?
That was it. He didn't even say anything else after that. So the next one was now trying to find a word, whether it was a commanding lead, an overwhelming lead, a profound lead. It was now what we're trying actually to work on.
I think his opponent gave him the word that says decisive.
Don't worry, that is for them.
Oh, okay.
Decisive is under 1 million. Now this is overwhelming.
Okay.
And beyond. Because even in Parliament, it's over 180. If you have 275, 160 is decisive. 180 is a riot. It's an annihilation. It's a repudiation. It's a referendum on all that is bad about Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. It's as simple as that. Ghanaians went to the polls, so they went to deal with them well.
You know, speaking of the numbers, you know, there are those who have said that overwhelming majority is quite dangerous, depending on how you're going to use it. We engaged Musa Dankwa earlier, the pollster, and he said it's going to test how truly democratic the NDC is, looking at the huge number.
Is Musa sure about that? Test it. How is he going to test it?
Because you see, if you have the huge majority, means that if you have the you have the 2/3 really, so you don't need the other side to, do any government business. That's what it is. So you can, if you are truly democratic, you will use it for the people's good. If you are not truly democratic, you will use it for parochial interests.
You know something? There's a lot of parochialism already. And we'll let that stay with Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, okay? I would also want to look at it from the perspective of the Ghanaian citizen. What do they expect? Why do you think Ghanaians will go out there? In every constituency, they had a choice of an NPP and NDC, and elect to vote out their NPP parliamentary candidates. and vote for an NDC parliamentary candidate, they saw the compassion of the MPP in parliament. They saw the level of arrogance. They saw what little sensitivity they displayed. They saw that everything was about the New Patriotic Party or Akufo-Addo. They saw how the 80 ministers who went clamoring for Ken Ofori-Atta's dismissal were treated, how Akufo-Addo went after them in their constituencies. They saw Api Akubi and what he went through when he dared to criticize his own government. Ghanaians are very discerning, my sister. You see, President Akufo-Addo and Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia rode on the back of heavy propaganda, hiding under the guise of Dumso. It served their purpose at the time because everybody was riled by the power outages. They took advantage and won overwhelmingly. 4 years down the line, that lead was sliced in half. And the people that they tormented the most were now at power with them in parliament. That should tell you something. And you know, looking back on it, I still think that 2020 election should have gone into a second round and we would have won. Because by then, Ghanaians had seen that, Oga don't win presidency now and there. Nobody tells him how to live in it. It was obvious. Look, if we were going to put these people to the strict test, put them to strict proof, put them to the back like we did with the NDC, this government would have collapsed months ago. I think the only thing that people were holding out on was that there's hope. You can use your thumb. Very soon you can go there and vote them out. So everybody just sat patiently. You know, the day before Saturday, Friday, when I watched the silence in the town, you know, there was this very calm day. And then someone said to me, Auntie Joyce, town is so calm. What do you think? I said, oh no, there's always a calm before the storm. I can see change because I didn't see the usual rushing around and people being scared and trying to hide.
Buying, stocking up food and all
Excellent.
that. Excellent.
And every polling station or center that I visited, you could tell how they received me. Even some of the EC officials. When I arrived there, you could tell that everybody was waiting for what was to come. Look, we are grateful to the good Lord. We are thankful to God. I have always known Mahama to be a better leader than the ones we have. You know, Mr. Mahama is very compassionate. And you know, there's one thing about him, a very modest man. He doesn't like big things, doesn't like flashy things. You know, sometimes, you go and ask Mahama for 2 cities when he's walking. You see, he start hitting his pockets. You understand, he's that kind of person.
Yeah.
You travel with this man and people are looking for 5-star and 7-star grand hotels to sleep in. Anywhere you offer Mr. Mahama a bed, no questions are asked. You will see how his personality and his persona will impact greatly on the next 4 years. And you know, I think that his personality was actually one of the things that did it for him. But people see him, and you can see he's a man of the people.
And so, to the question about the overwhelming majority in Parliament, for those who say perhaps people should be scared, what do you say to them?
Nobody should be scared. You know our leader. You know our chairman. You know our general secretary. You know our executive. You've seen them all. I mean, look at General Seydou Nketia. One of the sharpest guys ever to appear on the political scene. But look at him. You see Fifi Kweti. And led by John Mahama. I mean, look.
They say power corrupts.
Oh, my sister. You see, we've learned from there's one lesson we should all take from what has happened to Akufo-Addo and Bawumia, okay? Take a lesson in humility. Take a lesson in respecting the electorate. Take a lesson in compassion. Take a lesson in leading so that people would feel the impact of your leadership. Take a lesson also in listening to the people who elected you. And take a lesson in taking responsibility more than anything else. How are you going to run roughshod over the good people of Ghana because you have an overwhelming majority in Parliament, or you've won resoundingly with 56.55%? I think that is actually very humbling. Genuinely, it is a very humbling experience. And so I know that we know the exigency of the day. We appreciate that the stakes are high. We also acknowledge that the confidence reposed in us is actually overwhelming. And so we must handle it with enormous responsibility. We must handle it with due care. We must take it as an excuse to deliver better for the good people of Ghana. That make not all the proceeds of what we have go to the people in parliament or to the people in government or to our friends and family, but that we must live by example, eschewing all the negativity of the Akufo-Addo Bawumia administration. We must use the numbers to work for the good people of Ghana.
Now, in 2016, when the Akufo-Addo Bawumia government came, they had so much goodwill. But 4 years down the line, that goodwill waned. And that's how come the votes halved. 8 years down the line, looks like that goodwill is completely gone. Are you sure
I'm very sure.
This goodwill that you are enjoying from the people of Ghana, they would not someday regret?
I'm very sure. Hold faith. Be with us. Support us. Help Mr. Mahama to deliver. You know, I believe it. I believe it. And I watch him, and I know that all he's looking for are solutions. That even days after this overwhelming endorsement, all he's focused on is how to deliver for the good people of Ghana. What we should do, what we shouldn't do, when to do it, when to start. He is actually very focused. And remember, God has given him a second chance to restore his legacy. And I'm sure he will do exactly that.
Now, you speak about second chance. Now, the former president is making history. One of the portals reported that he will be the first president to have been sworn in 3 times.
Yeah.
Because he was sworn in
After
on the
Professor
unfortunate
Mills,
passing of Professor Mills, then in 2013, and then 2025. He has had the benefit of being in, going out, and coming back in. What will he do differently?
I believe that he will focus more on efficiency.
Okay.
He'll focus more on implementation. He'll focus more on supervision. He'll focus more on monitoring. Because you see, sometimes it is not that you have not put in place efficient individuals. It is that the supervision is sometimes very weak.
People do what you inspect.
Exactly. But people should actually be put on their toes. People should be made to deliver. People should be given targets. And the best part is that if people fail to meet the targets, they must be fined or sacked immediately. I think that we must have a system that does not reward failures of the system. Because you see, when the wider good is not served, it affects everybody. And if he doesn't crack the whip, he might suffer the fate of Akufo-Addo and Bawumia. So I'm hopeful that he will definitely be focusing largely on delivering on an efficient and implementable system that everybody will see the results immediately. Look at the abandoned projects. If we tackle them immediately, people will feel the benefits. People will appreciate it. Look at the condition of our road networks. If he takes that very, very seriously, people would notice, they will take it seriously. It will improve passenger enhancement, improve passenger lives, safety of lives. Look at the condition of our street lights across the country. You know, in all of this also, my sister, there must be a revolution also in our attitude as a people.
Absolutely.
In our commitment to our democratic experiment. That as a people, we must also join governments to work for us and in our interests. So there's a certain tweaking of our attitudes also
that we need.
That must come. Driving through a shortcut today through Abilinkpi, I saw this huge gutter and the rubbish inside it, on the left of it, on the right of it. And there are people just a few meters away doing brisk business. We ought not to live like that. And human beings should know that we should not tolerate a life like that.
You spoke highly about how empathetic, compassionate, and deliberate and focused the former president-elect is. Now, you know, it's one thing having a leader who has all these characteristics. But a lot of the times we hear people say, oh, maybe Mr. Mahama is not the problem. It is the people around him, or it is his appointees. What are the measures in place, or that will be instituted to ensure that the qualities you speak of so highly of the president-elect equally reflect in these appointees or individuals around him, to ensure that at the end of the day, the country is the better for it?
You know something? Let me be very sincere with you. I don't think that there are any men or women around Mr. Mahama worse than those around President Akufo-Addo and Dr. Bawah. I don't think so. I think with hindsight, really, a lot of the things they complained about, they've done even a lot worse. But for my part, let me give one assurance that over the years, remember my colleague Dr. Mani Bawah, he suffered the brunt of the NDC's own criticism, which was mostly unfair, but it took center stage. Even when Dr. Mani Bawah was actually nominated to serve as Director for Elections, I know the levels of criticism that came. He took that task reluctantly and gave it his very best. What can possibly be wrong with a man like Mani Bawah working in or around John Mahama? Take Julius Deborah, who was our chief of staff at the time when we left office, who is currently going to be heading the transition team of the NDC. What would you say about Julius Deborah that you will not say worse about those you have today? I want to say one thing, that we should believe in our leader.
Okay.
We should trust his qualities as a leader. We should trust that he knows those he will be picking up to serve in his government. You've seen the NDC members of parliament over the years. You've seen how they've stood up and fought hard. It is that fighting spirit that has greatly impacted on what it is that we intend to do. Life or government wasn't perfect, you understand. There were certainly certain things that maybe with hindsight we could have done better. You understand? But over the years, I'm sure we are all wiser. Over the years, we've all seen how Akufo-Addo has suffered for his dogmatic loyalty to his appointees. We will certainly not be repeating these mistakes. But I'm hoping that we will stay very true to self, remain very humble, respectful of the Ghanaian citizens, respectful and mindful of people's sensibilities, mindful of the gift of unity that God himself has bestowed upon us, mindful of the cosmopolitan nature of our country, mindful of the respect to give to our chiefs and rulers, mindful of the contributions they also make to our democracy, and why we must work in the interest largely of the Ghanaian citizen. Look, hardship is real.
Yes.
Poverty is real. Look at the cost of fuel 8 years ago as against now. Look at the exchange rates 8 years ago as against now. Look at how our health facilities have deteriorated over the years. Look at the levels of taxes we are paying. Ghanaians are burdened, and only a few people feed fat on the proceeds of corruption. That also must change. And if we don't do anything, and we are able to stabilize our economy, stem corruption, be seen to be doing something about it, release these funds that are tied into people's hands and pockets, and use it for the wider good, I'm sure that people will be grateful to John Mahama and grateful that they elected him to lead us in this very difficult time of our history.
Now, you spoke briefly about the transition, and I'm just about wrapping up. So, in relation to the transition, one of the key things that have come up since the list came out was that the representation. President-elect Mahama has, on the campaign trail, spoke about how inclusive his government will be, that he will bring a lot more women on board. And even through his decision, Ghana will be having its very first female vice president. But then with the list, it was just one woman on there. And there are people who believe that perhaps we could have had more. What do you say?
Did those people celebrate the nomination of Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman? How did they receive a nomination when she suffered the lowest forms of criticisms, where were their voices? I trust my boss, and I know he'll deliver. I don't want to nitpick. And like I say, we will not change the narrative. I believe John Mahama is one of the most progressive leaders we have in Ghana. I don't remember him saying that Ghanaian women were not amplified or that Ghanaian women were not expert enough. There are rules for the transition. We followed those rules very clearly. Let me speak to my sisters this morning, even though some of you were on the fence for a long time. If you are offered opportunities, please accept. Please take the jobs when they are offered. Do your very best to stand up and be counted. I mean, when I arrived on this scene, how many female spokespersons did we have? 2017 was a difficult year. 2018 was a tough year. 2019 was even tougher. And then Mr. Mahama decided to contest again. The barrage of attacks that came were not easy. The attacks about the excesses or the things that happen in government were not easy. We took the knocks. We stood up. Look at the number of women today working in and around the NDC. That must reflect and tell you that something new is happening. And so please don't nitpick. Nana Jane alone represents 52.1% of our population that are women. I believe that that is a very progressive ticket. Ghanaians have elected that progressiveness. They've embraced it. Even though many of those speaking today never spoke out in support of that nomination. Ghanaians have told us that they appreciate it, that they are grateful. And I will always err on the side of caution and work for the good people of Ghana. I think that they are the voices that really matter.
2025, 2026, 2027, 2028, they are going to be difficult years because if for nothing at all, we've had our debt repayments and some of the interests postponed to those years. Are you aware of how tough it's going to be and how is a government in waiting bracing itself for it?
You know, I believe that it is actually for that reason that God has given us a new leader. That God picked a man who loves Ghana. God picked a man whose legacy I'm sure we probably have not even started to think about yet. And I believe that he's on the cusp also of making history by giving us our very first female vice president. In the next few years, I'm sure you see many women going out there to pick nomination forms to contest as president on various political platforms. There is one thing I know for a fact, that Mr. Mahama's own modesty would actually bring to bear a lot on the decisions that we make in terms of financial decisions, in terms of the economy, in terms of improving the economy, in terms of building a consistent and stable economy, and above all, creating jobs for the many people who don't have jobs. Difficult it will be, challenging it will be, but certainly you won't see Mr. Mahama eating wachi and kinky and celebrating an exit to the IMF. You won't see Mr. Mahama wasting resources, traveling the length and breadth of Ghana to pass an e-levy that we had no business passing. You won't see Mr. Mahama, for example, flying on a private jet and paying thousands of dollars an hour just for his personal comfort. That will not happen. And remember that the stock exchange will be happy to have a leader who knows how to protect, in reality, the public purse.
I think it will take some time for us to get used to it. President-elect John Mahama said he thanks God for laying a table before him in the presence of his enemies. What does he mean by that? Or what did he mean by that?
All of us use that, don't we? Day in, day out, we use it. It's actually one of the most popular Bible verses. The most used phrases in the Bible. And the Bible has many wisdoms.
You are not answering my question.
Intentionally.
What did he mean by that?
Oh, I won't hand over to a man that I've beaten in an election. I will not hand over to a one-term president. I will leave Dumso with Mr. Mahama. And if Mr. Mahama were to win power, Agenda 111, all the fear and panic that they were exporting to stifle dissent and stifle voters, to intimidate voters, to force us to go into a runoff.
Well, because you have to be somewhere, I think
I'll come again.
I think I would have to end it here. Thank you very much, Madam Joyce Mogtari, for joining us for the mini listeners and Ghanaians, they say, Ayiko, and may you not disappoint them.
Yes, we thank them. And I will personally make sure, and many others are of like mind, that we will deliver to the satisfaction and glory of God first, and to the people of Ghana second. We will be accountable and transparent. We will do for you what you expect. You've given us overwhelming support in Parliament. We will use those numbers to work in your interests. Thank you so much, Ghana. Thank you, NDC. Thank you, John Mahama, for your leadership. Thank you, Nana Jane Opoku-Ejiman, for your sacrifice. Thank you to everybody who in one way or the other contributed to this overwhelming and resounding victory. Our returning members of Parliament for doing a yeoman's job. Our Speaker of Parliament, the Right Honourable Alban Sumana Bagbin, the many stakeholders, the elders who prayed for us, who cheered us on, who motivated us. We are grateful to each and every one. The media, those who traveled with us in particular. We are very grateful.
Hanan,
yes.
Hanan was on with
fantastic gentleman. And all the others.
Yeah.
To our own digital team, our in-house team, Event PR and Wezo TV. When nobody will carry our stories, when nobody will cover us live, when nobody would brand us, they were there for us. Those young men and women, we are eternally grateful. Led by the one and only Chairman Bakupe, Stan Dogbe, we are very grateful. We are so, so grateful. You know, I remember the office. Sometimes I get very emotional. How things used to be. It is to the glory of God and the sacrifice of those young kids. You understand?
Speaking of office, did you ever get the office for the former president as it was then?
No, don't worry. You see, today we want to celebrate.
Okay. I just wanted to be sure.
We want to celebrate.
Okay.
We are thanking God for his glory.
All right.
We will never do that, and I hope we don't. You understand? Dr. Bawumia, President Akufo-Addo watched how a man like John Mahama, whose whole life is in public service, was chased out of a little tiny bungalow that would actually not have taken anything away from the good people of Ghana. We thank God for his magnanimity, for his manifolds of blessings on the life of John Mahama. I remember saying that I wish I had a mansion so that I'll put my boss and his family inside. But to the glory of God, today we have every cause to be proud of him, to celebrate him, to salute him, above all to wish him well in this next chapter. That this final chapter may it be his very best yet. May that chapter reset, re-establish him as the man that Ghanaians ought to deserve, ought to respect, and ought to celebrate. God has given him this opportunity for a reason. And I used to tell people that God is not done with John Mahama yet. I'm glad that today we have seen that this history actually endorses that statement. God is not mocked.
What will you do to the cathedral space?
You know, I want us to investigate how the money was used first.
Okay.
And why, after $58 million and counting, we still don't have a cathedral. I think that is more important. And then the other conversations will follow.
All right. Madam Mogtari, thank you so much.
Thank you, my sister.
For joining us. We are grateful for your time.
Thank
That will be it for the Morning Star for today. My name is Nadi Ditete. Thank you so much for your company.